Hello. It's early April. Well, it's actually getting closer to mid-April almost. And today we're going to talk a little bit about lawn care, which I know is an extremely exciting topic for a lot of you. But having part of a garden also means having, you know, a lawn too. And I just want to talk briefly about my theory of lawns, lawn care, and then talk about, what I'm doing this year. So I'm not an expert, but at least it's just somewhere from my perspective is what we're talking about. So let's begin. All right. Let's talk about my theory of lawns briefly. Theory of lawns, because this is my garden journal, and this is just basically more for me, just to kind of keep track of the year. But I just want to start off with a quick overview. I think there's a lot of negativity online about people maintaining a yard, which is just crazy to me. Is it the most biologically sound activity that we do? Of course not. Of course it's not. But I think if you're going to be critical of people having lawns, you should also be critical of a lot of other things that we do that may not be 100% beneficial to nature. Okay, is it optimal? No, it's not optimal. Of course it's not. But I don't think that everybody needs to have an optimal environment that is perfectly suited for nature. When also your personal enjoyment is a factor. You own the home, you own the area, so I do think that you do have a little bit of say into say, all right, well, I also want to make this space enjoyable, right? So if you spend time saying, well, you should just have a clover lawn, or oh, you should just allow for your lawn to grow wild, you should never ever consider using fertilizers or any pesticide whatsoever. I think there's a couple things happening. Number one, and I do think there's a little bit of jealousy in people like that too. I think people don't have access to lawns that they can obsess about, which for various reasons. They have economic struggles, they have personal struggles, and I think a lot of the people take frustration out on that when they see people who do have those things and saying, "Oh, my lawn has a lot of crabgrass." Like, people are like, "Come on, really? Like, that's what you're complaining about?" So I think there's an element of frustration in people who say those kind of things. But I also think that for people who I think people do come from a good place, saying that they want to make sure that our environment is as well protected as possible. But I think there's something to be said about lawns that people tend to minimize, is that they are in some way beneficial, towards your environment. Are they as optimally beneficial to your environment as a wildflower meadow? Or no? But is a wildflower meadow as good at carbon capture as a forest? No. So should everybody be growing forests on their backyards? I don't think so. Providing lawn space actually is good for a lot of different insects, believe it or not. It provides shade for creatures that are underneath the ground. It actually provides a livable space too. So if I had a completely wild lawn, a lot of that place would be inaccessible to me. So also, I have a child. Like, literally, I saw last year in my driveway a red ant about this big that apparently is like a wasp that has one of the most painful stings on earth. I live in suburban New Jersey, so it's not like I live like somewhere exotic. Like, this is fairly commonplace. And so if I let my lawn grow crazy and I encourage creatures like that, I think that could actually be harmful to my daughter, who's 2 years old and going to run around barefoot in this yard. So, we need to do a better, I feel like it's my responsibility to make sure my lawn is well maintained, but also make it accessible so my daughter can enjoy it. So where do I fall? I kind of fall in the middle. Is that I think that we do need to do some regenerative practices. We need to be as careful as possible about the things we put into our ground. I also make sure the pollinators are protected. I make sure that there's areas of my garden that are beneficial for pollinators. you know, I want to encourage pollination. I have trees, I have, you know, fruit trees, I have a lot of different things. So I don't want to do blanket pesticides and kill everything in my lawn. I don't want to do that, all right? But I also know that crabgrass, if it's not controlled, it can be devastating. And I can show you some examples of what it did to my lawn after basically 1 year of letting it go out of control. So a little bit of crabgrass prevention at the beginning of the year in early April, which is kind of where I'm at, is good to help protect the lawn. So again, I want to, and also I don't want to spend all my time taking care of my lawn. I'm not one of those guys that needs like the perfect lawn that makes all the other neighbors go wow. But I do want to have some pride in my lawn, and I want to do basically the minimal amount possible in order to preserve that. So I know I kind of sound rambly here, but the big picture is number one, I think that lawns do have a value. I think that they, you know, allow for an outdoor living space that's comfortable for people. I think that it does contribute to the environment in some way. And as long as you do practices that are not aggressively, you know, I'm not using glycopyrrolate or any like really aggressive um, um, pesticides. I think there's a way that you can enjoy a lawn in a responsible way. Okay. So one of my big steps here, I don't want to go too long in this video, but my big thought process number one is that in April, we're going to put, which is now, and I'm going to show a video of this, is we're going to lay it down a level of what's called pre-emergent. Now, pre-emergent isn't soak into the soil and it doesn't get into the water streams theoretically. It basically just creates a surface barrier that makes crabgrass difficult to come through, okay? So it's not directly killing them. It's not a direct pesticide that's actually killing, you know, it's not seeping in and poisoning the plant. It's just preventing the plant from growing. That in turn allows it to die naturally. So I think that's an acceptable thing that we can do. And it's a one-time treatment that we're doing in spring, basically. The soil temperatures, like if I showed in the video right now, are probably around 50, 55, which is where I want to be. We've thankfully had a little bit of a cold spell because I haven't had a chance to get out here recently. So I'm glad that it's not super warm and we're having weed germination. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the lawn a little bit longer. So a little bit longer lawn actually is more beneficial to the environment. So my plan is to keep the lawn at about 3 inches this year. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. The other thing about that is it actually contributes to a healthier lawn because it shades out weeds. So we're going to be cutting a little bit longer, potentially a little bit more frequently, at least the beginning, and then hopefully go from there. Yeah, and then we'll just document the process. So this is just a quick April lawn update, but let me show you what crabgrass can do if it's out of control. Okay. So for quick comparison's sake, this is my backyard, okay? Does my backyard have some patchy areas in it? Of course it does. But generally speaking, it's a pretty solid looking lawn. It's pretty lush, it's pretty thick. You got a lot of brand new growth coming up. You know, everything looks pretty healthy. But let me show you my front lawn. So this is my front lawn. And if you can see this huge bare spot here, this basically is all crabgrass damage. So if we go in and look, this stuff here, this is all crabgrass. So it started off as a small patch and basically just continued and grew throughout the entire lawn. So this entire half of the lawn basically is completely dead. So I'm gonna have to do some major restorative efforts in order to prevent more damage. The thing about crabgrass is that it's an annual. It's not perennial. Oh wait, it's the one, I think it's perennial. It's the one that basically dies at the end of the year. So, but before it dies, it releases a lot of seeds. So those seeds are all throughout my lawn right now. So every year it gets exponentially worse. So what the plan is this year is to try to limit that damage as much as possible. Is I'm gonna at least start by laying a pre-emergent and cut the lawn thick this year. Hopefully in spring, I'll be able to take this area, rake it up, in fall, and then lay some more seed. But let me show you how we're gonna do that. All right, so our weapon of choice against crabgrass is gonna be the Scott's crabgrass preventer. It is pendimethalin 1.7%. So then each bag is 5,000 square feet. So I have 5 bags, 25,000. I think my front lawn, I calculated briefly on Google Earth to be 23,000, which is pretty big. So so this hopefully, all these bags spread hopefully will be able to help us with our crabgrass problem. Of course, I'd recommend getting one of these spreaders. They're relatively inexpensive, although I kind of feel like Lowe's was increasing the price this year. But, you know, having one of these in your garage, you know, will be able to do a lot of the tasks that you need to take care of your yard. Even despite you having a big yard, it should still be able to handle the job. All right, so it's going to take a little bit of effort to dial in the exact correct spreader amount so I can evenly spread it across the yard here, but we're going to give it a try and we're going to see how it goes. So I'm just going to put a podcast on, and so I'll just show you after it's all done. But all right, so we pretty much finished. That didn't take much time at all. It only took like maybe half an hour, not even. But I got 5 bags, which is 25,000 feet. I think I probably would have been better with 6 bags. It would have been 30,000 square feet. Because I did, you know, I'm still working on the pacing, but I felt my pacing was pretty good and my coverage is okay. So we'll see how it does. But I kind of think I should have got another bag. So next year, as a note to myself, I'm gonna go 30,000 square feet at least. But yeah, so all right, so we'll see. So now the next part is, you know, allowing the grass to grow, cutting it at frequent intervals, making sure it doesn't dry out too bad, and then in the fall hopefully start seeding and hopefully fixing up this horrible bare patch. But we'll go from there. All right, well, thanks for watching. Lawn care isn't my favorite topic, but it's something that I think is unfortunately part of the homeowner's guide that they don't teach you, you know. It's in the pamphlet. But I didn't get the pamphlet, I guess. So, you know, there's a lot of crabgrass damage that I had that probably could have been prevented, you know, if I knew what I was doing, or if I could at least, you know, be aware of it as a problem. So let this kind of be a warning to you if you are a new homeowner and you have a nice lawn that you inherited. Keep an eye out for crabgrass, because if it starts to get a problem, usually starts to come around July, you'll start seeing it. It can devastate your lawn. So it's going to take some effort to try and fix it, but we're going to do the minimal amount. Again, that was like half-hour effort, maybe like between $100 to $200 worth of pre-emergent, you know, including the spreader. And hopefully that'll slow it down enough that we can let the lawn start repairing itself. So I will keep you posted. We'll do a fall update of how the lawn's going, and then we'll go from there. Thanks for watching.